Africa's a huge continent. It's 54 countries for a start. That includes those in the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. And each of those countries is different. In terms of regions, we tend to look at three different regions, that being North Africa, and that's Morocco across to Egypt. South Africa tends to be classified as a separate region. I know it's one single country, but it's such a different development stage to so many other countries in Africa. And then there's that big bit in the middle with the other 48 countries. Um, and within there, we're talking West Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, East Africa. I think the most important factor that any developer looking across border is going to consider is legal system, is regulatory system. There are countries like Rwanda, like Morocco, like Kenya, Botswana, and others that want tourism development. They want hotel development, and they get tourism. They understand the value of tourism in terms of economic development, in terms of job creation, in terms of diversification of the economy and geographically how the jobs are distributed. And of course, the foreign exchange. If you have a foreign tourism element, which many of those countries I mentioned do. So, really important to be looking at those legal systems because they do differ so much. Some are English-based, Anglophone, Anglo-Saxon-based. Some are Swiss-based. Some are French-based. Some are Arabic legal systems, etc., etc. So understanding that with local expertise is so desperately important. And then there's the licensing. Who licenses the different stages of construction, the different facets of an operation? Is it central government, regional government, local government? Who is it actually involved? You really do need to understand that before you start putting your money on the table. And they also relate to your operating costs, not just the development costs of licensing, but also um, in some countries, everything gets licensed. Your borehole, your water treatment plant, you get charged for the water you take out of your own borehole. The generator, everything, there seems to be a license required, sometimes multiple licenses for the same thing. Understanding that is so very, very important. I don't think there's been much change in the hotel product that a guest receives since I think it was Cesar Ritz in London when he built the Ritz Hotel. He put a bathroom into every bedroom, ensuite bathroom. And people said, what do you need all those bathrooms for? Because before that, it was a communal one down the corridor. But he saw that, well, that was nice to have. And has anything changed since that happened? Okay, it's a slightly comic story, but I think there's a lot of truth for it. We haven't seen much difference in the basic product. That is a hotel that a guest enjoys. Two big changes that the guest doesn't actually see very much. Well, one is technology, which is now embedded in so much of a hotel's operations. Because the guest demands it now, information on tap a bit before, during, and after the stay. And the hotel operator demands it as well in terms of information about the guest and the staff and the suppliers, etc., etc. In Africa, I can really only identify changes that are often required back of house. Back of house is those areas that the guest doesn't go to. They're the other side of that wall. the guest doesn't know about. What is it? It's the kitchen, it's the engineering shops, it's the storage, it's the staff areas, things like that. And in Africa, in some places, you're going to need more storage because your supply lines are less, let's say, less certain than they would be in a European city where you can get everything you want same day, because the suppliers are there. That's not necessarily going to be the case in Juba, in South Sudan, or even in Nairobi, in Kenya. So more storage might be required, more uh, chilled and frozen storage for much the same reason, and also because of the heat. And then there's the air conditioning systems. Many African countries, cities are hot. Not all of them. Some countries need heating because it gets cold at night. Those cities which are quite high, like Addis Ababa or Nairobi. But air conditioning is a requirement, and that means where to position the air conditioning in the rooms and the kit in the back of house, whether in terms of the chillers and the condensers and that kind of thing. There's nothing terribly unique about hotel development compared to any other emerging market, whether that be in Asia or Latin America or the Caribbean. Although some people seem to say that Africa is too difficult, I don't subscribe to that. It's being done, not to the same extent, uh, perhaps, than in, say, China. But hotel development is there to be done, and it's being done. Challenges that hotel developers face. I would, as on a previous topic, talk about legal systems and licensing systems, and getting to understand those which are specific, which are peculiar to where you want to actually develop. And that means getting local knowledge. Sometimes that local knowledge is very, very hard to come by. I've worked on projects where the professional team, the architects, the interior designers, the engineers, the lawyers, were their objective was to please the client and to tell the client what the client wanted to hear, as opposed to saying, well, no, sir, that's not what how to do it properly. And as a result, you fall foul of the authorities because you don't get the right licenses at the right time. And that means sites get sealed, fines get levied, delays, etc., etc. And you get poor professional input, and at the extreme, that means buildings collapse. Yes, it happens. Yes, it happens because the structural engineer wasn't competent enough to work on a complicated hotel building. So the advice must be to any hotel developer, local, cross-border, whatever they may be, is to get the right advice. And if that means importing foreign consultants, so be it, if that's the way to do it right and to have a sustainable operation and a sustainable asset, one which is going to last. And another challenge we do face in several cities and countries is a lack of trained staff. Um, there is a gross shortage of training facilities, whether that's state-owned or private facilities, a massive shortage. There are some very good ones. I'm going to mention Wavecrest College in Lagos, which is superb, but it's tiny compared to the actual requirements of the industry itself in Lagos and in Nigeria as a wider market. So more training facilities are required. It's a challenge. How to address that challenge? Well, hotel managers have to train their staff and keep training those staff and working out how to retain those trained staff, motivate them, and keep training them. You sometimes hear that Hilton are building 10 hotels, 12 hotels in Africa. Marriott are building 50 hotels, 60 hotels in Africa. Let me just make it clear, in case you didn't know this, that Hilton don't build hotels, Marriott don't build hotels. None of the brands that you can think of build hotels. They are looking for and working with hotel developers who build hotels for them to brand and manage. Having said that, the headlines are that the chains are expanding quite rapidly in Africa. Radisson have something in the order of 100 hotels in operation and are under construction in various of those 54 countries in Africa, and seem to be opening more hotels than others. I think they opened 9 hotels in 2022. Have recently announced the signing of 7 new hotels with owners, not for them to develop, with owners. Accor, with their Novotel and Fairmont and Sofitel and other brands, one of the largest in Africa, 161 hotels at last count, with a pipeline of some 90 hotels. Marriott are one of the largest operators on the continent as well, but they don't develop hotels. So, giving examples of chains that do develop hotels, I'm going to choose 3, all of which have their origin in West Africa, but have expanded outside West Africa into Central Africa and elsewhere. And these are Onomo, Azalai, and Mangalis. All of them have a headquarters in Africa. Azalai is very much a homegrown hotel chain based in Mali, Bamako, Mali, with operations at owned hotels and leased hotels there, and Ouagadougou, Cotonou, Guinea-Bissau, Dakar, Abidjan, and other places. Mangalis also have a headquarters in Senegal and are working throughout West Africa into Central Africa as well, into the DRC. Onomo have expanded well outside that region into Morocco and South Africa. So those are 3 hotel chains which do develop hotels. They do own hotels and are expanding and are success stories. In terms of numbers of hotels, they're much smaller, 10, 15 hotels each, than the Accors or the Marriotts, because they're using their own balance sheet, and inevitably that is a limiting factor on how fast they can expand, but expand they are doing. If you look at our annual pipeline report, which looks at what the hotel chains are doing in Africa in terms of signing deals with owners, it shows that in terms of new deals, North Africa, which is only 5 countries, North Africa is fully 45% of the total pipeline. That's quite amazing when you consider, as I say, that's 5 countries out of the total 54. So, in terms of things happening it's Morocco and Egypt are the main focuses, because they have great tourism products, because the government gets tourism, because they are closer to the main source markets in Europe and increasingly the Indian market. Um, so Morocco and Egypt are important destinations for development. Second, then, is West Africa with about 25% of the total, ahead of East Africa. But then West Africa has more countries. It's got about 16 countries compared to about 10 or 11 in East Africa. So West Africa has um, more cities, other and towns where hotel development can be undertaken. Having said that, more actually takes place, is realized in East Africa than it is in West Africa. If you look at two big markets there, Ghana and Nigeria, there's an awful lot of stalled projects. Big problem, really, because each of those problems has already absorbed a lot of investment, which is well, not necessarily dead, but it ain't doing anything at the moment. So the primary markets for development do seem to be in East Africa, and then Morocco and Egypt in North Africa. If I look to the future, doing a bit of blue skying, please don't shoot me down for suggesting that maybe Libya is a country for the future. Now, we all know that any investment needs political stability, it needs economic stability, as well as airlift and tourism product in order to be successful. And Libya really doesn't have many of those to speak about. But tourism product, Libya's got some amazing beaches on the Mediterranean. Libya's got some amazing Ottoman and Roman ruins and artifacts and other history to look at. And I compare it with Turkey, that if you go back 40 odd years, Turkey had nothing. Turkey was not a tourism destination. There were 2.4 million visitors in the early 1980s, and they were mostly business visitors. Today, the figure is 60 million because they realized that they had a tourism product on which to build. Turkey was a pariah state in the late 1970s, early 80s. So could Libya become a major tourism destination? I don't see why not. Morocco is, Tunisia is, Egypt is. Let's keep our eyes on Libya for the time being. It's not in the short term. It's probably not even in the medium term, but one day maybe. The other one I'm going to pick is Sierra Leone, which has some of the best beaches on the west coast of Africa. It is politically stable. It's a small economy, but it's relatively stable. It doesn't yet have the airlift, but the government does have a wish to generate a tourism industry in order to generate jobs, which is what it's all about. Like many countries, a very youthful population, and they need jobs. So those are two, if you like, outliers at the moment. But let's see what happens in the future in Libya and Sierra Leone.